So welcome to our Stepping into Shakespeare podcast. We're here with Fergus Foster, who's an actor. Welcome, Fergus.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Fergus. So great to have you here.
Thank you, Therese. It's good to be here.
And I wanted to start off by asking you, about your acting background. How did you start off acting?
Yeah, I have an unconventional route. It started off conventional. So I went to drama school when I was 18. I went to Drama Centre London. I was too young. I wasn't ready. So unfortunately, after 2 years, I was like, this isn't for me anymore. So I actually left. And then I ended up traveling the world. And I traveled for roughly 10 years. And then, after 10 years, I'm originally from the Cayman Islands, and I was doing an advertising or a marketing job out there. And I was like, why didn't I really try acting? I kept thinking about it every day, and I was like, why didn't I do it? So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to London. And I ended up I took a little stopover in Italy, and I did a Meisner course in Florence. Funnily enough, it was all in English, thankfully. And so I was like, oh, this Meisner thing is fun. And then my teacher there, his name was Tim Daish, and he was like, if you're going to London, you should meet up with my teacher, his teacher. And he was called Tom Radcliffe. So I went over to London, and I looked him up, and then I just did Meisner for the first few months, which was great. And that was 4.5 years ago. So I've been back in London 4.5, nearly 5 years. And since then, I've just been hitting it as hard as possible. I've changed agents a few times and done a bunch of short films, did a couple feature films recently, did a couple plays as well. So yeah, it's been an unconventional route into acting.
Yeah, definitely. And how was it in the Cayman Islands for acting? I mean,
Yeah, it's non-existent. That's why I was that's why I came back to London, because I knew that the connections, the industry here is so much bigger. In the Cayman Islands, funnily enough, recently, because of COVID, they had quite a few Hollywood films come down to the island just to film, because they couldn't shoot in the States at the time. So I kind of missed out on that window, which would have been nice. But outside of that, it's very, very small pool of acting industry there. Yeah.
How did you get into Shakespeare?
So I guess my first experience with Shakespeare was at drama school. And it was quite a limited experience because I wasn't there for very long. And then I left, and like I said, I didn't do any acting for a long time. And then I came back, and then since I've been back in London, my experience with Shakespeare has mainly been in acting classes and play readings. I go to a great acting class called Actor's Crib every week, and it's like a scene study class. So we do lots of different scenes, and sometimes my teacher throws in a Shakespeare scene as well. So yeah, but no, once I get back into it, I realize how much I miss it.
So how was the experience for you reading Shakespeare with us then?
Yeah, it was. Well, to start with, it was a little daunting because I haven't had a huge amount of experience with Shakespeare. But then, as the weeks of rehearsals went on, I became more and more comfortable. And like I said before, it's once you get past the language and you really understand what you're saying on a human level, it's all, obviously just human stuff, isn't it? Like it's all like, human, topics and things. So once you get through that and understand really what you're saying, then it's amazing, and it's brilliant, because the stuff that the Shakespeare is just so much more. The language, it just hits the nail on the head so much more colorfully, I guess.
So you could enjoy the beauty of the language.
Yeah.
Reading the text.
Definitely. I mean, it's so beautifully written. The prose is just, it's something that you can really, and there's so many different ways you can play it. I mean, obviously, like any scene, you can play it a million different ways, but with this, there's so many different ways, because the language, you have to kind of interpret it I mean, obviously it has a certain meaning to it, but you can interpret it. It's even deeper because you can interpret it in even more ways. So yeah,
That's
no, I
really
love.
interesting. And how did you find your roles of Sebastian and Valentine?
Yeah, well, I think Matt, director, cast it very well because I can very much see myself as Sebastian for sure. I think we have a lot of similar traits, and he's obviously thought about that, Matt, in terms of casting who, and he actually just reached out to me because we actually met at the actor's crib, where the acting class I go to, and he said, "Hey, do you want to do some Shakespeare?" And it was at the time when this is how the universe works. I was like, "Oh God, I wish I could do more Shakespeare." And so he just reached out and he called me, and he was like, "Yeah, I heard you were thinking. I heard you were thinking about Shakespeare." So it was perfect timing. And no, I mean, Sebastian is, as they all are, as people are, complex characters, and I really, really enjoyed trying to understand and explore his journey, what he meant to everybody else, his sister, and all the other characters of the play. And he just kind of ends up in this world, and he's like, is everybody crazy here? What's going on? And, you know um yeah, like I said, is all the characters are so beautifully written, and the same with Valentine. Obviously not quite as large a part, and I had a bit more fun with Valentine because I could put on a bit more of an RP voice, with Valentine, and that was quite fun with playing around with that. And so yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and it's just the same as any other play, any other character. You have your backstory, you have the relationships, your circumstances. It's all the same. It's just with this language, which is slightly elevated. That's all it is.
Did you find it difficult to read it at the beginning, the Old English, or?
I think so, because I think when you first read it, you don't really know what you're saying because you're looking at the words and you're like, okay, I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't understand what's going on here. But obviously, the more you read it, it kind of just comes. What's amazing about Shakespeare is even if you don't fully understand what you're saying the first time, if you keep reading it and reading it and reading it, you eventually get to know what it is that you're actually saying. So I think that's what's amazing about it. And so yeah, obviously reading it a lot, and then of course cheating and looking up like, what does this mean? What am I trying to say? What am I trying to do? How do I feel? All these things were all incredibly helpful.
It's really cool. And is there a line from Twelfth Night that maybe stuck out to you, or anything that sort of you took away from it?
Yeah, well, when he says, "Is everyone here mad?" I mean, it just sums it up perfectly. Like in his experience in Illyria, is everybody here bonkers? Because I feel like people are like, this beautiful woman is coming onto him and wants to marry him because she's of a case of mistaken identity, and he's like, okay, this is fantastic, but what's going on? And then people try to fight him. He gets punched, and it's just like, it's almost like an apocalyptic world, or a dream world, depending on how you look at it. So yeah.
That's absolutely true. And yeah, you're the one character, well, Sebastian's the one character who just comes in and like everything else is just happening, and
Yeah.
it's just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, exactly. He's just kind of absorbing everything like a child, like, I don't really know what to do, but I'll just go along with it anyway.
That's awesome. And are there any other Shakespeare plays you'd like to work on? Are there any sort of in your mind in the future?
So I was reading a bit like The Merchant of Venice, which I think looks, from what I'm reading, really interesting. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, Midsummer Night's Dream would be a lot of fun, I think. But I'm really open to anything. I'd never be like, no, I won't do that Shakespeare play, or I won't read it or learn about it, because I think doing it now with you guys has really, helped my confidence with it.
Oh,
And I
that's
know,
good to hear.
yeah,
I think that's the purpose of it as well, to have this, to read this play together, to have a little show, and the purpose of this podcast, basically. to get familiar with it, and then of course you lose a little bit your insecurity or your doubts, which I had very much as well at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, it's nothing is as bad as it seems. So
Yeah.
once you jump in and do it and then just, explore and learn, it's like, okay, I can do it a bit more easily the next time.
And I think it's great doing it with like a group of people. Like reading the plays in itself is just it's interesting, but it's when you hear the lines coming from other people and you see their interpretation of the character and you see what they do, it just brings it to life, doesn't it? It just makes it more
Yeah,
real.
and it was brilliant to see the journey that everybody went on, from the beginning rehearsal, where everyone was a bit like, oh, what are we doing? And then to the very end, where everybody was very confident, they knew their characters, and they really told the story, so it was amazing. I mean, obviously that's what the rehearsal process is for, but it's just particularly satisfying with Shakespeare because everybody understands fully in their body what they're saying now,
Yeah, and it did take time, I think, just to kind of for everyone to come to that, but it is, like you say, it is a journey. And I think once you sort of get solid with your character, you're like, okay, this is who Sebastian is or Olivia is or Viola is, and you're like, okay, I understand them, but it can take time for sure.
100%. Yeah. But I think everybody worked really well together. Everybody got along well together. And Matt is a brilliant director. Shout out to Matt because he's just he gives the notes perfectly, and there's a lot of not very good directors. So Matt, I would definitely recommend and would love to work with again in anything really.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We love working with you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.